The email hit Jonathan's inbox like a bomb at 2:17 a.m. "We know what you are. Come out and you'll pay with your life." But the real shock came 2 hours later when he realized the threats weren't just from anonymous trolls. They were tied to the exposé he'd just published, the one where he finally admitted he was gay right there in the final paragraph for the whole world to see. Jonathan Hale stared at his laptop screen in his cramped Brooklyn apartment, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. His hands shook as he scrolled through the comments flooding the article's page. "Traitor. Freak. You'll regret this." He had spent months digging into Senator Harlan's campaign, uncovering how the politician funneled dark money to anti-LGBT groups while preaching family values on national TV. The story was explosive enough on its own. But Jonathan knew the only way to make it stick, to force real conversation, was to strip away his own mask. So he added that single line, "As a gay man who is hidden for too long, I refuse to let fear silence the truth anymore." Now the fear was screaming back. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He let it ring to voicemail. "You think you're brave, Hale? Your family in Ohio knows now. Your boss knows. Everyone knows. Watch your back." Jonathan's stomach twisted. He hadn't spoken to his parents in months, their conservative Midwest roots making any mention of his personal life impossible. Now they would hear it from strangers. He paced the room, the city lights of New York flickering outside his window like distant warnings. At 32, he had built a career on exposing secrets while burying his own. Late nights at the Times office, awards for hard-hitting pieces, but always alone. Until Nicholas. Their relationship had started quietly 6 months ago at a discreet charity event. Nicholas Rivera, 35, sharp-suited private investigator the paper sometimes hired for background checks. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes that saw too much. They had kept it hidden, stolen dinners in quiet restaurants, whispered conversations about dreams neither had dared chase. Nicholas had warned him. The world's not ready for both the story and the storyteller, John. But Jonathan had pushed forward anyway. Now the cost was arriving in real time. A knock at the door made him freeze. Too late for neighbors. He grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, heart pounding. "Who is it?" "It's me." Nicholas's voice, low and urgent. Jonathan opened the door just enough. Nicholas slipped inside, his face pale under the hallway light. "I saw the article. The threats are already hitting the wire services. My contacts say they're not empty." They stood inches apart, the air thick with everything unsaid. Nicholas reached out, his hand steady on Jonathan's shoulder. "You didn't have to do it alone." Jonathan pulled away, the weight of the decision crashing down. "I did. If I stayed silent, the story would have died. But now, my career, my family, everything." Nicholas nodded, eyes searching his. "We'll face it. But you need protection. The paper's assigning me full-time." Jonathan laughed bitterly. "My boyfriend as bodyguard. Perfect." Yet in that moment the fear eased just a fraction. They sat on the couch as dawn crept in, Nicholas making coffee while Jonathan read through more messages. One from his editor, "Emergency meeting at 9. Another from his sister in Ohio, "Mom's crying. Dad won't speak. Call us." The hook of his old life was unraveling thread by thread. By morning, the newsroom buzzed with tension. Colleagues avoided his eyes or offered awkward pats on the back. "Bold move, Hale," one said, but the tone carried doubt. Jonathan's editor, Carla, closed the door to her office. "The story's already trending. Senator's team is denying everything and calling you a liar with an agenda. Death threats are credible enough that we're looping in security." Jonathan nodded, throat tight. "I stand by it." Carla leaned forward. "Just know this changes things. For all of us." Outside, Nicholas waited in the lobby, pretending to review files. Their eyes met across the glass, a silent promise. Jonathan stepped into the elevator, the city below stretching endless and unforgiving. He had wanted truth. Now truth was hunting him down. As the doors closed, he wondered if love with Nicholas could survive the storm he had unleashed. The first cracks were already showing in his resolve, but something deeper stirred too. a quiet defiance he hadn't known he possessed. The day stretched ahead, filled with calls he dreaded making and shadows he couldn't yet see. Back at his apartment that evening, Jonathan finally dialed his parents. His mother's voice cracked on the line. "Jonathan, how could you? In the newspaper for everyone to read." His father cut in cold. "You've shamed us. Don't come home." The call ended with silence heavier than any threat. Nicholas arrived shortly after, carrying takeout and a quiet strength. They ate in silence at first, then words spilled. "I never wanted this for you," Nicholas said, setting down his fork. "But I'm proud. Scared, but proud." Jonathan looked at him, really looked, seeing the man who had quietly supported every risky lead. "I didn't plan on dragging you into it." Nicholas smiled faintly. "Too late. I'm all in." Their hands found each other across the table, a small anchor in the chaos. Yet as night fell, another email pinged. Photos of Jonathan and Nicholas from weeks ago, taken without their knowledge. "We see everything." Jonathan's blood ran cold. The threats had just gotten personal. The journey he started with one bold paragraph was now a full-blown war, and the man beside him was both shield and target. The photos arrived like a gut punch, time-stamped from their last dinner in Soho. Jonathan stared at the grainy images on his phone, Nicholas's arm around his waist in a moment they thought was private. "We see everything," the message read again. Nicholas paced the living room, his investigator instincts kicking in. "This isn't random. Someone inside the senator's circle has resources. We need to trace the IP." Jonathan sank onto the couch, the weight of exposure crushing him. Coming out in the article had been his choice, a calculated risk for impact. But this felt like violation on a whole new level. His hands trembled as he forwarded the email to the paper's security team. "They know about us," he whispered. Nicholas stopped, pulling him close. "Then we stop hiding completely. No more shadows." The words hung between them, a promise and a challenge. Jonathan nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Nicholas had his own closet, buried under years of military service and family expectations from his Puerto Rican roots in Queens. Their love had thrived in secrecy. Now it was thrust into the spotlight, raw and unprotected. The next morning brought more fallout. Jonathan's inbox overflowed with interview requests mixed with hate. A major cable network wanted him on air to discuss the exposé and his identity. "This could amplify the story," Carla urged in their follow-up meeting. But Jonathan hesitated, the memory of his parents' rejection fresh. "I didn't sign up to be the poster boy." Nicholas waited outside again, blending into the background like always. Later, they walked through Central Park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. For the first time in days, the city felt alive rather than threatening. "Remember when we met?" Nicholas asked, his voice soft. Jonathan smiled despite everything. "You grilled me on that background check like I was a suspect." Nicholas chuckled. "You were too charming to be clean." They shared a quiet laugh, hands brushing but not holding, aware of eyes everywhere. Yet the moment broke when Jonathan's phone rang. His sister again. "Dad had a heart scare last night. He won't say it, but it's because of you." Guilt slammed into him. Nicholas saw it in his face. "Family doesn't get to define you, John. But I know it hurts." That afternoon, they met with a private security consultant at Nicholas's office downtown. The man laid out protocols. Very routes, no public displays, monitor devices. "These threats have teeth. One guy was arrested last year for similar against an activist." Jonathan listened, the reality sinking deeper. Back home, he drafted a follow-up piece, focusing on the personal cost of truth-telling. Nicholas read over his shoulder, offering edits that sharpened the emotion without sentimentality. "You're good at this," Jonathan said, turning to him. Their eyes locked, and for a brief second, the world faded. A soft kiss followed, tentative and real, sealing the shift from secret to shared fight. But peace was short-lived. An anonymous tip came through Nicholas's contacts. A former staffer from the senator's campaign wanted to talk, but only if Jonathan came alone. "Trap?" Nicholas asked. "Maybe, but it could crack the story wider." They argued late into the night, voices rising for the first time. "I can't lose you to this," Nicholas said finally, his voice cracking. Jonathan pulled him into an embrace. "You won't. We're stronger together." The misunderstanding lingered though, a small rift born of fear. The meeting happened in a nondescript diner in Queens. The staffer, a nervous woman named Elena, slid an envelope across the table. "Harlan's group has a list. Journalists, activists, anyone who challenges them. Your name's at the top now." Jonathan's pulse raced as he scanned the documents. Names, addresses, even Nicholas's included. He thanked her and left quickly, heart pounding. On the subway ride back, paranoia set in. Every passenger seemed to watch him. Nicholas met him at the station, relief flooding his features. "Safe." Jonathan nodded, but the documents burned in his bag. That evening, they pored over them at the kitchen table, piecing together a network of intimidation that stretched across states. "This isn't just about me anymore," Jonathan realized aloud. Nicholas squeezed his hand. "It's about all of us." Yet as they worked, Jonathan's mind drifted to his family. A text from his mother arrived. "Your father wants to talk, but only if you come home." The invitation felt like a trap of its own kind. Nicholas saw the conflict. "Go if you need to. I'll be here." The offer was kind, but Jonathan sensed the underlying worry. Their bond was testing its limits already, love meeting the hard edges of real life. By week's end, the article's impact rippled outward. Protests formed outside the senator's office, supporters chanting for accountability. Jonathan appeared briefly on a podcast, voice steady as he spoke of identity and integrity. Nicholas listened from the next room, pride mixing with anxiety. Later, they cooked dinner together, a small ritual amid the storm. "I love you," Nicholas said suddenly, the words new in their openness. Jonathan paused, knife mid-chop. "I love you too." The declaration hung sweet and fragile. But as they ate, another threat pinged. A photo of their apartment building with a red X marked over the window. The escalation was real. Jonathan set his fork down, resolve hardening. "We fight back smarter." Nicholas agreed, but his eyes held shadows. The emotional toll was mounting, each decision carving deeper into their souls. Jonathan wondered if the man he was becoming could hold onto the love that started it all. The city hummed outside, indifferent, as their story unfolded one tense breath at a time. The flight to Ohio felt like stepping into a minefield. Jonathan sat by the window, Nicholas's text glowing on his phone. "Call if it gets bad. I'm one flight away." He had decided to go alone, needing to face his parents without the added layer of their relationship on display. The article had already torn open old wounds. Bringing Nicholas might shatter what little remained. Landing in Columbus, the familiar flat landscape stretched out, a stark contrast to New York's chaos. His sister picked him up at the airport, her hug tight but brief. "They're trying, John. Just be gentle." The drive to their small town was quiet, filled with the weight of unsaid words. When they pulled into the driveway, his mother stood on the porch, eyes red-rimmed. "Son." The word carried years of distance. Inside, his father sat in his recliner, the TV muted on a news segment about the Exposé. "You made quite the splash," he said, voice flat. Jonathan sat across from him, heart hammering. "I didn't do it to hurt you. It was the truth." The conversation stretched into the evening, raw and halting. His father admitted the heart scare was stress, not just from the article but from the town's whispers. Neighbors had stopped by with pamphlets from their church. "They say you're confused, living in sin." Jonathan listened, the old shame rising but met now with new strength. "I'm not confused, Dad. I've always been this way. Hiding it nearly broke me." His mother cried quietly, but she reached for his hand. "We love you. It's just, we don't understand." Progress, fragile as it was. Yet betrayal crept in when his sister pulled him aside later. "Dad talked to Uncle Ray. He's connected to some conservative group. They might be part of the threats." Jonathan's blood chilled. family ties tangled with the very network he was exposing. He called Nicholas that night from his childhood bedroom. "It's messier than I thought, but they're listening." Nicholas's voice was steady. "Proud of you. Come home soon." The call ended with quiet affection, but Jonathan sensed the growing distance, the strain of separation amplifying every doubt. Back in New York 2 days later, the office buzzed with new developments. Elena, the staffer, had been fired and was now cooperating fully. Her evidence pointed to a coordinated smear campaign, including doxing gay journalists. Carla pulled Jonathan into a strategy session. "Your personal story is the hook now. We run a follow-up series." He agreed, but the spotlight felt heavier. Nicholas waited after, suggesting a low-key dinner. They chose a small Italian place in Brooklyn, far from prying eyes. Over pasta, Nicholas shared his own past. Coming out to his parents at 20, the temporary rift that healed with time. "Yours will too," he said. Jonathan nodded, but the Ohio visit lingered. "What if it doesn't? What if I lose them for good?" Nicholas's hand found his under the table. "Then you build new family. With me." The words warmed him, yet a misunderstanding surfaced when Nicholas mentioned a late meeting with a client. "Old military buddy," he said casually. Jonathan's jealousy flared unexpectedly. "Straight buddy?" The question slipped out sharper than intended. Nicholas frowned. "Does it matter?" The evening ended on a tense note, the first real crack in trust born of insecurity. The next week brought escalation. Protesters gathered outside the Times building, signs reading, "Hail Lies for Agenda." Jonathan watched from the window, Nicholas beside him. "We can leave through the back." But Jonathan refused. "No more hiding." He stepped out, cameras flashing. A reporter shoved a mic forward. "How does it feel knowing your sexuality derailed your career?" Jonathan answered calmly. "It didn't derail it. It defined it." Nicholas watched proudly from the lobby, but later that night, doubt crept into their conversation. "You don't need me out there," Nicholas said quietly. "You're handling it alone." Jonathan pulled him close. "I need you more than ever." Their embrace lingered, a reminder of the happiness they fought for. Yet the threats intensified. A brick smashed through Jonathan's apartment window at midnight, wrapped in a note. "Next time, it's you." Police arrived, but leads were thin. Nicholas insisted on moving him temporarily to his place in Queens. Safer together. Packing boxes, Jonathan felt the shift. Their relationship was evolving from stolen moments to shared survival. Family updates came sporadically. His mother sent a text. "Your father read your follow-up. He's thinking." Small victories amid the chaos. At work, Jonathan poured himself into the series, interviewing other men who had faced similar backlash. Each story mirrored his own, deepening his resolve. Nicholas helped vet sources, their professional lives intertwining with the personal. One evening, over Chinese takeout at Nicholas's, they talked futures. "After this blows over, maybe a real vacation," Nicholas suggested. Jonathan smiled. "Just us. No threats." But reality intruded with an anonymous call to Nicholas's line. "Tell your boyfriend to drop the story or lose everything." The voice was distorted but clear. They reported it, but the fear bonded them tighter. Jonathan realized in that moment how Nicholas had become his anchor, the one constant in a world unraveling. Misunderstandings faded as they chose unity. The climax was building, society pushing back hard, but inside, Jonathan was growing, shedding the fear that had defined him for years. Nicholas saw it too, his love deepening with every shared battle. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Jonathan believed they could walk it together. The safe house felt like a cage. Jonathan paced the nondescript apartment the paper had arranged in upstate New York, walls closing in after 3 days of isolation. Nicholas had insisted on the move after the brick incident and the latest call. "Just until we trace the source," he had said, kissing him goodbye before heading back to coordinate with security. But solitude amplified every doubt. Jonathan's laptop sat open, the next article half-written, words blurring as fatigue set in. His phone showed missed calls from his sister, and a single text from his father. Proud of the courage. Call when you can. The olive branch surprised him, cracking open the emotional dam. He dialed immediately, voice thick. Dad. The conversation was short but healing. His father admitting the article had sparked talks at church about acceptance. Not everyone agrees, but I'm listening now. Tears stung Jonathan's eyes as he hung up. Growth hurt, but it was happening. Nicholas arrived that evening, bringing groceries and updates. Elena's testimony is solid. The DA's looking at charges against the senator's inner circle. They cooked together in the small kitchen, the domestic normalcy a bomb. Over dinner, Nicholas opened up about his own fears. I almost lost my brother when I came out. He came around, but it took years. I don't want that for you. Jonathan reached across the table. We're rewriting that story. Their fingers intertwined, the touch electric with relief. Yet tension rose when Nicholas mentioned a new lead. A colleague at the paper had been leaking details to the opposition. Internal betrayal, he said grimly. Jonathan's stomach dropped. Who? Nicholas hesitated. Carla's assistant. Caught on camera. The news felt like a punch. The woman had seemed supportive, offering coffee during late nights. Trust shattered again, forcing Jonathan to question everything. How do we know who's real? Nicholas pulled him into a hug. You know me. That's enough. The reassurance helped, but the misunderstanding lingered into the night, Jonathan withdrawing slightly in his worry. The following day brought a breakthrough. They drove to a secure meeting with Elena and federal agents. The evidence mounted, emails linking the threats to a private security firm hired by the campaign. Jonathan testified virtually, his voice steady as he described the personal toll. Nicholas waited outside, pacing until it ended. Back at the safe house, celebration was quiet. They watched the sunset from the porch, the rural quiet a contrast to the city's roar. This could end it, Nicholas said. Jonathan leaned against him. Then we start real life. A kiss followed, tender and full of promise, their bodies close in the cooling air. But happiness was interrupted by a news alert. The senator held a press conference, doubling down and labeling Jonathan an activist in reporter's clothing. The attacks continued online, flooding his accounts with vitriol. Nicholas monitored, deleting the worst, but the emotional drain showed. They're trying to break you, he whispered. Jonathan nodded. They won't. Not with you here. Family reconciliation progressed with a video call. His mother smiled through tears, sharing how neighbors had started asking questions instead of judging. Your story's making waves here too. His father added gruffly, come home for Thanksgiving. Bring Nicholas if you want. The invitation warmed Jonathan's heart, a step toward wholeness. Nicholas, overhearing, squeezed his shoulder. I'd like that. Yet society pushed back harder. Protests turned violent outside the Times. One arrest linked to the same firm. Jonathan's editor called with praise and caution. Your series is Pulitzer material, but lay low. The pressure mounted, forcing decisions. Jonathan chose to write one more piece, exposing the leaks and the internal betrayal. Nicholas helped fact-check late into the night, their partnership seamless. You're changing minds, Nicholas said, pride evident. Jonathan looked at him, realizing how far they had come from secret dates to this shared mission. Internal crisis eased as he embraced his identity fully, no longer the hidden man but the one standing tall. As October turned to November, the climax neared. A court date was set for preliminary hearings. Jonathan prepared his statement, Nicholas rehearsing with him. You've got this. Doubts surfaced in quiet moments. Was the fight worth the isolation, the fear? But looking at Nicholas, the answer was clear. Their love had grown through the fire, deeper and more resilient. A small celebration marked the progress. Nicholas surprised him with tickets to a Broadway show once it was safe. Normal date, he promised. Jonathan laughed, the sound free for the first time in weeks. Yet that night, another threat arrived via mail to the safe house address. A single bullet with Jonathan's name etched on it. Panic set in, but Nicholas's calm response steadied him. We end this now. They contacted the agents immediately. The betrayal from within the paper led to arrests, tightening the noose on the campaign. Jonathan felt the tide turning, his choices bearing fruit in ways he never imagined. Emotional awakening complete, he stood ready for whatever came next, Nicholas by his side. The story wasn't over, but the man he had become was unbreakable. Courtroom lights glared overhead as Jonathan took the stand, heart steady despite the cameras. The preliminary hearing had drawn national attention, his exposé now the centerpiece of a federal case against Senator Harlan's network. Nicholas sat in the gallery, his presence a quiet strength. Jonathan spoke clearly, detailing the threats, the leaks, the personal cost. I came out not for attention, but because silence enables the very corruption I exposed. Cross-examination was brutal, the defense painting him as biased. Your relationship with Mr. Rivera influenced your reporting? Jonathan met the lawyer's eyes. My love made me braver, not biased. The room murmured. Nicholas's smile from across the space said everything. After hours, they recessed, the judge setting a trial date. Outside, reporters swarmed. Jonathan faced them with Nicholas at his side now, no more hiding. Justice isn't just for the powerful. It's for everyone living truthfully. The victory felt hollow that night at a hotel near the courthouse. Nicholas ordered room service, sensing the exhaustion. You were incredible. Jonathan collapsed onto the bed. It doesn't end here. The threats might stop, but the judgment won't. Nicholas joined him, their conversation turning deep. I was scared too, of losing the life we built in secret. Jonathan turned to him. But we have something better now. A misunderstanding from weeks ago resurfaced when Nicholas admitted a brief doubt during the safe house days. I thought you regretted coming out because of me. Jonathan sat up. Never. You gave me the courage. They talked through the night, clearing the air, their bond strengthening with honesty. Forgiveness came easy, love the foundation. Morning brought news. The senator's chief of staff had flipped, more arrests pending. Jonathan's phone lit up with supportive messages from colleagues and even distant relatives. His father texted, saw the hearing, standing taller today. They returned to New York as heroes in some circles, villains in others. The paper threw a small celebration, but Jonathan kept it brief, preferring quiet time with Nicholas. They walked the Brooklyn Bridge at dusk, city lights reflecting on the water. Remember our first real talk here? Nicholas asked. Jonathan nodded. You said the world needs more stories like ours. Hand in hand openly now, they savored the freedom. Yet societal pressure lingered. A family dinner with Nicholas's relatives in Queens tested them. His mother embraced Jonathan warmly. Any man who loves my son this fiercely is family. The acceptance healed old wounds, contrasting his own parents' slower journey. Back home, Jonathan reflected in his journal, the pages filling with insights on identity, sacrifice, and growth. Nicholas read excerpts aloud, their laughter mixing with tears. We're writing our own ending, he said. Escalation peaked with one final threat. A package delivered to the Times containing documents and a warning. But this time it backfired. Federal agents traced it directly to a remaining operative. The arrest made headlines, the case crumbling. Jonathan and Nicholas watched the report together, relief washing over them. It's over, Jonathan whispered. Nicholas kissed his forehead. The real beginning starts now. They planned a weekend getaway upstate, no security, just them. The drive north was peaceful, conversations flowing from past fears to future dreams. Kids someday? Nicholas asked tentatively. Jonathan smiled. If we build it right. At the cabin, they hiked trails and cooked by the fire, the romance blooming without shadows. Jonathan's internal conflicts resolved fully. He was no longer the man defined by fear but by choice. Nicholas's guarded heart opened completely, their partnership a testament to resilience. Family bridges strengthened with a Thanksgiving invitation accepted. The Ohio trip was tentative but warm, his parents meeting Nicholas with cautious kindness. He's good for you, his mother said privately. His father shook hands firmly. Thank you for standing by him. Tears flowed, healing decades of silence. Back in the city, Jonathan resumed work with new purpose, mentoring young reporters on authenticity. Nicholas expanded his firm, focusing on protecting vulnerable voices. Their life settled into rhythm, dates now public, love celebrated. Yet the journey had changed them both. Jonathan embraced his role as advocate, speaking at events about the emotional path of gay men in America. Nicholas stood beside him always. The high point came during a charity gala where Jonathan received an award. In his speech, he thanked Nicholas publicly. "You taught me that love isn't hidden. It's lived." The applause thundered, but their private moment afterward was what mattered. A quiet dance in the corner, worlds aligned. Misunderstandings long forgotten, sacrifices rewarded with peace. The story of threats had transformed into one of triumph, each decision shaping the men they became. Christmas lights twinkled along Fifth Avenue as Jonathan and Nicholas strolled hand in hand, the city alive with holiday cheer. 6 months since the Exposé dropped, and life had settled into a new normal. Jonathan's series had won awards, the senator facing trial with strong evidence. Threats had vanished, replaced by fan mail and speaking invitations. Nicholas's firm thrived, their relationship now a quiet anchor. "Ready for New Year's in Times Square?" Nicholas asked, pulling him closer. Jonathan laughed. "As long as we're together." They stopped at a vendor for hot chocolate, the warmth mirroring the glow in their chests. Reflections came easily now. Jonathan thought back to that fateful publish button, the shockwaves that forced him to confront every hidden part of himself. The family rifts mended slowly but surely, weekly calls now filled with genuine interest. Nicholas's presence had been the catalyst, his steady love guiding Jonathan through crisis to clarity. A quiet dinner at their new shared apartment sealed the evening. Candles flickered as they toasted. "To choices that changed us," Nicholas said. Jonathan clinked glasses. "To us." Conversation turned to growth. Jonathan admitted the internal storms, the nights questioning if public truth was worth private pain. Nicholas shared his own awakening, how protecting Jonathan had healed old wounds from his past. "We both grew up in that fire." Laughter followed stories of early dates, the betrayals overcome, the misunderstandings that tested but never broke them. Their bond felt unbreakable, forged in adversity. The next day brought a surprise visit from Jonathan's parents, flying in for the holidays. Dinner was warm, stories shared around the table. His father pulled him aside later. "I was wrong to push you away. Seeing you happy, it matters." Tears came freely, full circle from the initial rejection. Nicholas joined the embrace, family expanding. The moment crystallized Jonathan's journey, from isolated journalist to man rooted in love and acceptance. New Year's Eve arrived with fireworks and crowds. They stood in Times Square, arms around each other as the ball dropped. "Happy New Year," Nicholas whispered, their kiss captured in the cheers. No more fear, only forward. Jonathan's career evolved into investigative pieces on social justice, always with personal touch. Nicholas balanced protection work with advocacy. Their life wove friendships, community, and quiet nights. Yet the deeper awakening lingered. Jonathan journaled often, capturing how every decision rippled. The article that shocked society, the threats that tested resolve, the love that redeemed it all. Nicholas read one entry aloud one evening. "You turned pain into purpose." The words affirmed everything. Society had shifted too, their story inspiring others to come forward. Letters poured in from young gay men across America, thanking them for visibility. Jonathan answered each, paying forward the courage he had found. Spring brought new beginnings. They bought a small house upstate, blending city work with weekend escapes. Family visits became routine, holidays filled with laughter. Jonathan proposed on a hike, simple ring in hand. "Marry me?" Nicholas's yes echoed through the trees. Planning followed, blending traditions from both families. The wedding would be intimate, a celebration of the path walked. As summer bloomed, Jonathan reflected in a final column, the power of authenticity in a divided world. Nicholas stood by during the photo shoot, pride evident. Their story wasn't just survival. It was thriving. Emotional growth complete, Jonathan embraced every facet of himself. Relationships deepened across all fronts. Nicholas's quiet strength complemented his fire perfectly. The future stretched bright, filled with possibilities once unimaginable. In their backyard one evening, watching fireflies, Jonathan turned to Nicholas. "We made it." Nicholas smiled. "We did more than that. We built something real." The peace settled deep, yet questions remained for the world they left behind. True or false? Coming out publicly as a gay man in a high-profile career is always worth the personal cost, no matter the threats? 1,000 words exactly.